Hey guys, Josh Macin from the Detox Dudes here. I want to talk to you about heavy metal testing. So many of us on this journey are desperately looking for some type of clinical or physical evidence to rest on, because we have this invisible enemy that is toxicity, right? We're talking about heavy metals and parasites and plastics and estrogens and so many of these things we can't see, right? Of course we get to see parasites come out, and that's an amazing thing to rest on. But aside from that, all the other stuff is invisible. The invisible enemy, right? It's not fun, not easy. So we all want to rest on these the heavy metal test results. And I want to talk to you about the 3 different types of tests, the pros and cons of each of these tests, okay? So we'll start with a blood test, okay? One of the ways that doctors test for heavy metals is through the blood. Now, the problem with this is that heavy metals only sit in the blood and travel through the blood for anywhere between 30 minutes and at most 24 hours. So you get subjected to a heavy metal, you either eat something or it goes onto your skin or you drink it. And one of the many different ways you can ingest heavy metals into your system, it's going to be traveling through your bloodstream for a very short period of time before it settles into a safe space. And I use the quote, whatever these are called, quotes, I use them because there's no such thing as a safe space when it comes to heavy metals, but they are a safer space than the bloodstream is the organs and the glands and the tissues, which is where these metals kind of settle. So heavy metal testing through the blood is virtually useless. It's only showing you recent exposure, or it's showing you if you're actively detoxing. I just had a talk with a brilliant chemical engineer about 3 months ago, and told him about what I do for a living, and he said, "Oh, I know I'm not heavy metal toxic." And I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Because my company makes us do monthly blood tests for heavy metals." So I almost laughed out loud. You know, these companies and a lot of these federal institutions are testing people for heavy metals using blood tests and crossing it off of a list of potential medical issues because of the results of the blood test. So super faulty system that's in place. The next test is a hair test, HTMA, right? It's where you cut a piece of your hair, or the best way to do it is to actually buzz your hair and get about 1 inch as close to the root as possible. You don't want to use any shampoos or any chemicals on your hair for about a day before. You never want to use any chemicals on your hair, but especially it can alter the test with like Head and Shoulders shampoo, alters the zinc levels on your hair. So the pros of this test is that it's very, well, it's cheap and it's safe, right? So you don't have to, and I'll get to the oral challenge test and tell you why that's not so safe, but the hair test is safe and anyone can do it. You don't need a prescription. And the downside is that many bodies are actually too weak to even effectively excrete the heavy metals to the hair. So what that means is you're seeing levels of heavy metals in your hair, which essentially is levels of heavy metals that your body is excreting. So you don't necessarily need to see the levels show up for you to be toxic. There's a lot of false lows that happen, which means you show little to no heavy metals on the tests, and the truth is that you could have them deeply stored in your organs and tissues. It's just that your body is not strong enough to excrete it to your hair. Another thing that happens is when people are actively on the detox path, they'll find that their levels of heavy metals go up as the months go on. And that's not because you're getting more toxic, it's because you're releasing more toxins to your hair. So pros of the hair test: cheap, easy, don't need a prescription, and safe. The cons: very easy to test for a false low. I know a lot of people who test for heavy metals on their hair, show up with low levels, take the plunge, the leap of faith anyway, and end up with improved benefits from the detoxification protocol. So third test is the urine challenge test. It's where you'll take a chelator, 1,500 milligrams or so of DMSA, and you take it orally, and you basically pee for 24 hours and collect your urine, and you send it to a lab and they check for the levels of metals. And we got this beautiful car here with super loud music that's ruining my video, but This is we're in Alki Beach. And Alki Beach, and basically people just come here to show off their fancy cars and loud music. Didn't choose the best filming location. It's my girlfriend's fault. So, a urine test, urine challenge, you take 1,500 milligrams. It's generally per pound. You take a certain amount of milligrams per pound. You need a doctor for it. And the pros is that it's super accurate, okay? You are chelating metals from deep in your cells, and you are gonna be peeing them out. The cons is, you know, A, if you're super sick, super toxic, having panic, anxiety, it can really exacerbate all of your symptoms. You know, I know people who have had issues for weeks or months after taking the chelators, high dose chelators, if they were very ill. So yeah, they get to see how much they have, but you know what? You don't even need to see the levels that show up. You get to feel it as you chelate, right? So I don't think it's safe. There's a ton of horror stories out there. There's a whole website devoted to horror stories of synthetic chelators. I do know that there are certain amazing doctors out there who use it effectively. Of course, I'm not a doctor. Talk to your physician about anything that I'm talking about right now, or talk to your physician about any of the tests. But nonetheless, urine challenge tests can be super dangerous for those who are really, really toxic. Otherwise, it's a good bet of seeing your toxicity. Now, there's another point here that needs to be made about the flaw of these tests as a whole. Okay, so we're not just dealing with heavy metal toxicity on our planet. We're dealing with plastics, estrogen-like substances, PCBs, flame retardants, all kinds of toxins, chlorines, bromides, all of the whole, it's just, it's all over, and it's not just heavy metals. If you erase heavy metals from this whole equation, there's still a huge list of chemicals, over 100,000 chemicals that were currently being used in manufacturing processes and in skin products that aren't showing up on these hair tests. So yeah, take heavy metals completely out of the equation. We're still dealing with a bit of a nightmare in all of the other toxins, and those are not showing up on 99% of these tests. I mean, there may be some tests out there that do. None of the ones I've seen share these levels of chemicals, plastics, estrogens, chlorine, and all this stuff, bromide. So yeah, I think a heavy metal and detoxification protocol in general is warranted for all beings, just basically being guilty by association, by being alive, by being in society, in this money-driven society that creates super toxic products. So in my opinion, that leap of faith really is needed, regardless of test results. Just start working on your health, on your vitality, start cleaning out all the junk. You can start with just old fecal matter in your colon, but in my opinion, like I said, that leap of faith is really, really important to just trust if it sounds right, if it resonates with you. Yeah, if you can get those tests to rest on, that's amazing. If not, I still think you should detoxify. I think all beings can benefit from a detoxification protocol. I'm not saying it's going to change every single person's life on the planet, but I do think it can make improvements in every person's life. So, thanks guys. On that note, perfect timing. I'm out. Peace.